You know that moment when you realize your entire marriage was a lie? Mine happened at my daughter's wedding, when my husband walked in with her on his arm. Everyone saw. Everyone whispered. But no one expected what I did next. Before we dive into this story, trust me, you'll want to see how it ends. Hit subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. This isn't just drama, it's about reclaiming your power. The seat that wasn't mine. The ballroom glowed under a sea of twinkling lights, the air thick with the scent of gardenias and expensive champagne. Emily's wedding was everything she had ever dreamed of, elegant, lavish, and painfully perfect. Every detail screamed of the life Lisa had helped build, the family she had fought for. And yet, as she stood frozen in the arched doorway, her silk clutch slipping from her trembling fingers, she realized none of it belonged to her anymore. A waiter bumped into her, murmuring an apology, but Lisa barely registered it. Her eyes were fixed on the head table, where her husband, Mark, sat laughing with his arm draped casually around the back of Claire's chair.
Her chair.
The one that should have been Lisa's. The one that had her name calligraphed on a place card just that morning.
Claire.
25 years old, all honey blonde hair and practiced smiles. Mark's executive assistant, or at least, that's what he'd called her for the past year. Lisa had ignored the late-night texts, the sudden business trips, the way Claire's laugh was a little too bright whenever Mark entered the room. She'd told herself she was being paranoid. That after 22 years of marriage, she could trust him. But this was a declaration. A hand touched her elbow. Lisa turned to see her sister, Diane, her mouth pressed into a thin line. "You okay?" Lisa forced a breath through her nose. "He replaced my seat." Diane's grip tightened.
I saw.
Half the room did. And they had. The sidelong glances, the whispers behind raised hands. The pity. It burned worse than the betrayal itself. Lisa straightened her spine. She wouldn't cry. Not here.
Not in front of them.
Then she saw him. Across the room, leaning against the bar with a drink in hand, was Jason Carter. Tall, broad-shouldered, his dark suit a stark contrast to the pastel sea of wedding guests. The man Mark had fired last year, publicly, ruthlessly, for insubordination. Their eyes met. Something flickered in his gaze. Recognition. Understanding. And something else, something dangerous. Lisa didn't think. She crossed the room, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Jason watched her approach, his expression unreadable. "You're here," she said, her voice low. He swirled his scotch. "Got an invite." Figured I'd RSVP, hell yes. Lisa glanced back at the head table. Mark was watching them now, his smile faltering. Jason followed her gaze.
"Ah.
That's why you're talking to me." "No," Lisa said. Then, sharper. "Yes. I don't know." Jason set his glass down. "You want to ruin his night?" A beat. The music swelled. Somewhere, Emily was dancing, oblivious. Lisa met Jason's eyes. "I want him to feel it." A slow, razor-edged smile spread across Jason's face. He offered her his arm. "Then, let's give him a show." The favor. Lisa hesitated for only a second before slipping her hand into the crook of Jason's arm. His sleeve was crisp under her fingers, the fabric warm from his body heat. She could feel the tension in his muscles, coiled tight like a spring. "Smile," Jason murmured, guiding her toward the dance floor. "Like you're enjoying this." Lisa forced her lips upward, her cheeks aching with the effort. The band switched to a slow song, something romantic and cliché, the kind of music that had played at her own wedding decades ago. The irony wasn't lost on her. Around them, guests turned to stare. Whispers slithered through the crowd. She caught fragments. "Isn't it the guy Mark fired? What's Lisa doing with him?" But she kept her chin high, her steps measured. Jason's hand settled at the small of her back, steadying her. "Eyes on me," he said quietly. "Don't give him the satisfaction." Him. Mark. Lisa didn't need to look to know he was watching. She could feel his gaze like a physical touch, hot and prickling against her skin. "Why are you here?" she asked Jason, keeping her voice low. His jaw tightened. "Same reason you are, probably. To watch him squirm." The music swelled, and Jason spun her gently, his movements smooth despite the edge in his tone. Up close, she could see the shadows under his eyes, the faint scar cutting through his eyebrow. He looked older than she remembered. Harder. "He ruined you too, didn't he?" she said. Jason's grip on her hand tightened almost imperceptibly. "Fired me, blacklisted me, made sure no one in this town would hire me again." A bitter smile. "All because I found out he was funneling company funds into offshore accounts." Lisa stumbled. Jason caught her effortlessly, pulling her closer. "You knew," she breathed. "I suspected. I brought it to him first. Stupidly thought he'd want to fix it. Next thing I knew, HR was calling me in for aggressive behavior." His voice dropped. "Sound familiar?" It did. Mark had always been good at rewriting history, at turning victims into villains. The song ended with a flourish. Around them, guests applauded. Lisa realized too late that they were the center of attention. Mark and Claire at the edge of the dance floor, Emily frozen mid-conversation with her bridesmaids. All eyes locked on her and Jason. Jason didn't let go of her hand. "You want out?" Lisa exhaled.
No.
A slow grin. "Then let's give them something real to talk about." Before she could react, he leaned in, his lips brushing her ear in a whisper that sent a shiver down her spine. "Meet me outside in 5. Bring your phone." Then he was gone, melting into the crowd with a smirk that left Lisa's pulse racing. She turned and came face to face with Emily. Her daughter's eyes were wide, her voice trembling.
"Mom."
"What are you doing?" Lisa reached for her, but Emily stepped back. "This is my wedding. How could you?" "Emily, listen." "No," Emily's voice cracked. "I don't know what's going on, but you're humiliating Dad. And me." Lisa's stomach twisted. This wasn't how tonight was supposed to go. But then she caught sight of Mark over Emily's shoulder, his arm around Claire, his expression smug. Humiliating him?
Good.
She squeezed Emily's hand. "I'll explain later. I promise." Then she walked away, her heels clicking against the marble, Jason's words ringing in her ears. "Meet me outside." Whatever game he was playing, she was all in. The Whisper Network. The cool night air hit Lisa's face like a slap as she pushed through the heavy ballroom doors. The venue's garden was deserted, lit only by flickering lanterns and the pale glow of the moon. Somewhere in the distance, laughter and music still floated from the reception, but out here, the world felt unnervingly still. She pulled out her phone, checking the time. For minutes since Jason left her on the dance floor. Her fingers trembled slightly as she scrolled through her notifications. 3 missed calls from Diane, a string of frantic texts from her sister demanding to know where she'd gone. She ignored them. A twig snapped behind her. Lisa spun around. Jason stood at the edge of the garden path, half shrouded in shadows. He held 2 glasses of champagne, the bubbles sparkling under the dim light. "You came," he said, offering her one. Lisa took it, her fingers brushing his. "You knew I would." Jason smirked but didn't deny it. He leaned against a stone bench, studying her. "So, how pissed is Emily?" Lisa winced. "She thinks I'm sabotaging her wedding." "And Mark?" "Loving every second of it," she muttered. "He's probably telling everyone I've lost my mind." Jason took a slow sip of champagne. "Good." Lisa frowned.
Good.
"Means he's rattled." He set his glass down and pulled out his phone. "Which brings us to why I asked you out here." He tapped the screen, and a video began to play, grainy but unmistakable. Mark, standing in what looked like an office, his voice low and urgent. "Just transfer the funds before the audit. Claire set up the accounts. No one will trace it back to us." Lisa's breath caught. Jason paused the video. "This was 2 weeks before he fired me. I recorded it after I realized what he was doing." Lisa's mind raced. "You've had proof this whole time?" "Proof isn't enough," Jason said darkly. "Not with a guy like Mark. He's got connections, lawyers, people who'll bury this. I needed leverage." Lisa stared at him. "And now you do." Jason's gaze locked onto hers. "We do." A gust of wind rustled the garden leaves, carrying the distant sound of the wedding march. Lisa's stomach twisted. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about ruin. She took a shaky breath. What do you want me to do? Jason stepped closer. Get me into his home office. Tonight. Lisa recoiled. You want to break in? I want to finish this. His voice was steel. He's got documents in there, real proof. Bank records, contracts. Enough to sink him. Lisa's pulse roared in her ears. Going back to that house, rifling through Mark's things, it was insane. Dangerous. But then she remembered the way Claire had smiled at him at the head table. The way Emily had looked at her like she was the villain. Her fingers tightened around her glass. And if we get caught? Jason's smile was razor sharp. Then we'll finally give everyone something real to talk about. A door slammed somewhere behind them. Voices, Diane's, frantic. Lisa? Where are you? Jason grabbed her hand, pressing a folded slip of paper into her palm. Address and time. If you're in, meet me there. Then he was gone, vanishing into the shadows just as Diane rounded the corner, her face flushed with panic. There you are. Diane grabbed her arm. People are freaking out in there. Emily's in tears, Marks. She stopped, narrowing her eyes. Who are you talking to? Lisa slipped the paper into her pocket, her heart hammering. No one. Diane wasn't fooled. Lisa. What the hell is going on? Lisa looked past her, toward the ballroom's glowing windows. Inside, Mark was probably spinning lies, turning the room against her. She turned back to Diane, her voice eerily calm. I'm just getting started. The break-in. The clock on the dashboard read 1:17 a.m. when Lisa pulled her car to a stop 2 blocks away from the house she'd called home for 18 years. The neighborhood was silent, the streetlights casting long shadows across manicured lawns. She killed the engine and sat there, gripping the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white. This is insane. But she was here. Jason's motorcycle was already parked in the shadows of an oak tree down the street. He leaned against it, arms crossed, watching her approach. The moonlight sharpened the angles of his face, making him look more like a thief from a noir film than the corporate strategist he'd once been. You came, he said, pushing off the bike. Lisa crossed her arms against the night chill. I shouldn't have. But you did. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a pair of black gloves, offering her a set. Because you want to see his face when he realizes he's lost everything. Lisa took the gloves without answering. The leather was cold and smooth against her skin. They moved like ghosts through the quiet streets. The house loomed ahead, dark except for the faint glow of the security system's keypad by the front door. Lisa's breath hitched when she saw the familiar outline of Emily's bedroom window, still sporting the sticker from her high school soccer team. Jason noticed her hesitation. We don't have to do this. Yes, Lisa said, digging into her pocket. We do. Her key turned smoothly in the lock, but the moment they stepped inside, the alarm panel began its shrill warning beep. Lisa moved quickly, entering the code with practiced fingers. The beeping stopped. Jason raised an eyebrow. He didn't change it? Never occurred to him I'd come back, Lisa said, her voice tight. They moved through the darkened living room, their footsteps muffled by the Persian rug Mark had insisted on buying during their trip to Istanbul. Lisa could smell his cologne lingering in the air, mixed with something floral, Claire's perfume, probably. Her stomach turned. Mark's office was at the end of the hall. The door was locked. Jason pulled a small case from his pocket and went to work on the lock with tools Lisa didn't want to examine too closely. After 30 seconds of tense silence, there was a soft click. The office smelled like leather and scotch. Moonlight filtered through the blinds, striping the mahogany desk where Mark had spent so many evenings working late. Jason moved with purpose, heading straight for the filing cabinet. Lisa hesitated in the doorway. What exactly are we looking for? Account numbers. Wire transfers. Anything that... Jason froze, his hand hovering over a drawer. Lisa. She stepped closer. Jason was holding a photograph. It showed Mark and Claire on a beach somewhere tropical.
His arm was around her waist.
She was wearing a diamond bracelet Lisa recognized instantly, the one that had supposedly been lost during their move last year. But that wasn't what made Lisa's blood run cold. Claire's other hand rested on her rounded stomach. Lisa's vision tunneled. The room tilted. Jason steadied her with a hand on her arm. Breathe. She couldn't. The dates lined up too perfectly. Mark's sudden business trip to the Caymans 6 months ago, his newfound obsession with eating healthy, the way he'd started talking about new beginnings. A floorboard creaked upstairs. They both froze. Jason's grip tightened. I thought you said no one was home. Lisa's pulse pounded in her throat. They weren't supposed to be. Another creak. Closer this time. Then the unmistakable sound of footsteps on the stairs. The confrontation. The footsteps grew louder, each creak of the stairs like a hammer strike to Lisa's chest. Jason moved first, shoving the photo into his jacket and pulling Lisa behind the heavy office door just as the hallway light flicked on. Yellow light spilled through the crack beneath the door. Lisa held her breath, pressed against Jason's chest. She could feel his heartbeat, steady, controlled, while hers threatened to crack her ribs. Probably just the damn cat, came Mark's voice, thick with sleep. Claire's answering giggle made Lisa's nails dig into her palms. You're so paranoid, baby. The footsteps passed the office, continuing down the hall toward the kitchen. The refrigerator door opened, the clink of glass bottles unmistakable. Jason mouthed window and nodded toward the French doors behind Mark's desk. Lisa shook her head violently. The alarm would trip if they opened. A phone buzzed. Mark's. Yeah. A pause. Then, sharper. What do you mean the alarm went off? Lisa's blood turned to ice. Jason didn't hesitate. He grabbed a heavy marble paperweight from the desk and hurled it through the kitchen window. The crash was deafening. What the? Mark's shout was cut off by the blaring security alarm. Go. Jason shoved Lisa toward the French doors. She fumbled with the latch as pounding footsteps charged back toward them. The moment the door gave way, cold night air rushed in. They ran across the dew-slick lawn, the alarm's wail chasing them into the darkness. Jason's motorcycle roared to life just as the front door burst open behind them. Lisa? What the hell? Mark's voice cracked with disbelief. She didn't look back. The bike tore through the quiet suburb, wind whipping Lisa's hair across her face. She clung to Jason, the photo pressing between them like a brand. 20 minutes later, they skidded to a stop outside a dimly lit diner on the outskirts of town. Jason's hands shook slightly as he killed the engine. Inside a vinyl booth, under the fluorescent lights, Lisa finally looked at the photo properly. Claire's smile. Mark's possessive grip. The diamond bracelet. The bump. Jason slid a coffee toward her. We can still walk away. Lisa traced the edge of the photo. 6 months pregnant. That meant. The board meeting, she realized aloud. When he pushed through the new parental leave policy. Jason's eyes darkened with understanding. He wasn't being progressive. He was covering his ass. The coffee burned Lisa's tongue, but she welcomed the pain. It grounded her. Made the next words easier to say. I want to destroy him. Jason leaned forward. Then here's what we do. As he laid out the plan, Lisa watched dawn break through the diner windows. The sky turned from black to bruised purple to pale gold. Somewhere across town, Mark was probably calling lawyers. Claire was crying. Emily was waking up to 100 missed calls. Lisa took the photo and carefully, deliberately, tore it in half. Then she dialed Diane. Meet me at the bank when it opens, she said. We have some safety deposit boxes to empty. Jason smirked over his coffee cup. That's my girl. The waitress refilled their cups, oblivious to the earthquake they'd just set in motion. Outside, the sun rose higher. Somewhere, a clock was ticking. And for the first time in years, Lisa couldn't wait to see what happened next. The safety deposit box. The bank lobby smelled like lemon polish and anxiety. Lisa tapped her foot against the marble floor, watching the minute hand on the wall clock creep toward 9 a.m. Diane sat beside her, nervously shredding a coffee sleeve. You're sure about this? Diane whispered for the third time. Lisa didn't answer. Her purse held half of a torn photograph and a key she hadn't used in years. The safety deposit box had been her mother's idea, Every woman needs an escape fund, darling. She'd laughed at the time. The manager approached with a too bright smile. Mrs. Whitmore, what a surprise. Lisa stood abruptly. I need access to box 214. Something in her voice made the woman's smile falter. Of course. Right this way. The vault door hissed open. Box 214 was smaller than Lisa remembered, tucked between two larger ones. Her fingers trembled slightly as she turned the key. Inside lay 3 items. A stack of bound documents labeled Whitmore Holdings Private. A USB drive shaped like a silver lipstick tube. A faded envelope with "For my daughter" scrawled in her mother's handwriting. Diane sucked in a breath. Is that Grandma's blackmail file? Lisa said flatly. Her mother had been old money with old grudges, and she'd taught Lisa one unshakable rule. Always keep receipts. Jason appeared in the vault doorway, sunglasses hiding his eyes. We've got company. Mark just pulled into the parking lot. Lisa grabbed the contents of the box. How long? 3 minutes, maybe 4 if he stops to yell at a parking attendant. Jason nodded to the documents. That what I think it is? Lisa flipped open the file to a highlighted page. Offshore account numbers. Shell companies. And in the margin, her mother's neat handwriting. Proof Mark was embezzling before the merger. Diane made a choked noise. You knew?
No.
Lisa's voice was ice. But Mom did. The USB drive contained videos, security footage from their old house. Mark, younger but unmistakable, counting stacks of cash in his study. Dates stamped on each file showed it was during the same period he'd convinced Lisa to invest her inheritance into his failing company. The envelope held a single sheet of paper, a notarized letter stating that all shares in Whitmore Holdings were legally Lisa's, signed by Mark during their honeymoon. Romantic gesture, he'd called it. Tires screeched outside. Jason took the USB. I'll make copies. Diane grabbed the documents. I'll get these to our lawyer. Lisa folded the letter into her pocket just as the bank doors burst open. Mark stood framed in sunlight, tie askew, face flushed with rage. Lisa, what the hell are you? His eyes locked on the open safety deposit box. Color drained from his face. Lisa walked toward him, heels clicking like a countdown. She didn't stop until they were nose to nose. Congratulations, she whispered. It's a boy. Mark recoiled like she'd struck him. Behind them, the bank manager cleared her throat. Mr. Whitmore, there are gentlemen here to see you. 2 men in suits stood by the door, badges glinting. Lisa stepped around her husband, brushing his shoulder with hers. Better call your lawyer, baby. Outside, the sun was blinding. Jason waited by his bike, engine already running. He held out a helmet. Where to? Lisa smiled for the first time in months. To war. The arrest. The police station buzzed with fluorescent lights and stale coffee. Lisa sat on a hard plastic chair, watching through the one-way mirror as Mark paced the interrogation room like a caged animal. His tailored suit looked rumpled now, his perfect hair disheveled. For the first time in 22 years, he looked small. Detective Ruiz flipped through the documents Diane had delivered. You understand these are serious allegations, Mrs. Whitmore. Lisa, she corrected. And yes, I do. Beside her, Jason sat unnaturally still, his eyes tracking every movement in the room. He'd barely spoken since they'd arrived, but his presence was a live wire, tense and ready. The detective tapped the offshore account records. These show a pattern going back a decade. Why come forward now? Lisa opened her mouth, but Jason spoke first. Because now she has proof he was stealing from his own investors. He slid the USB across the table. Footage of him hiding cash. Audio of him instructing Claire to falsify records. And he nodded to Lisa's purse where the torn photograph peeked out. Undeniable motive. The detective plugged in the drive. Mark's voice filled the room, crisp and clear. Just make sure the numbers match the Cayman transfers before the audit. And Claire, if anyone asks, you never saw these files. Lisa's stomach twisted. She'd known. Some part of her had always known. A commotion erupted in the hallway. Emily burst through the door, still in her wrinkled bridesmaid dress from the wedding, her face streaked with mascara.
Mom.
What the hell is going on? Her voice cracked. Dad just called me from a police station. Lisa reached for her, but Emily jerked back. Tell me you didn't do this. The room went silent. On the screen, Mark's recorded laughter played in stark contrast. Jason stood abruptly. I'll give you 2 minutes. Emily waited until the door clicked shut before exploding. First you humiliate him at my wedding, now this? Are you trying to ruin our family? Lisa pulled out the photograph. He did that himself. Emily stared at Claire's rounded stomach, her breath coming faster. This doesn't mean anything. It could be photoshopped or... It's real. Lisa kept her voice gentle even as her heart shattered. Just like the money he stole. Just like the lies he's been telling us for years. Emily's hands trembled. But the company, our house. Gone. Lisa said it softly, but the word landed like a hammer. But not us. We're still here. Down the hall, raised voices erupted. Mark was shouting now, his polished facade crumbling. I want my lawyer. This is a setup. Emily flinched at the sound. For the first time, doubt flickered across her face. Lisa reached for her again. This time, Emily didn't pull away. The detective reappeared, his expression grim. Mrs. Whitmore? You might want to see this. In the interrogation room, Mark had collapsed into a chair, his head in his hands. The detective's partner slid a single sheet of paper across the table. Lisa recognized the letter from the safety deposit box. Mark's shoulders slumped. His lips moved silently as he read his own youthful signature, surrendering all shares to Lisa. Emily made a small, wounded noise. Lisa squeezed her hand. It's over. Outside, the morning sun painted the parking lot gold. Jason leaned against his bike, watching them approach. Emily wiped her eyes. What happens now? Jason handed her a tissue. Now, he said quietly, we rebuild. Lisa looked back at the police station, then at her daughter's tear-streaked face. For the first time in years, the weight on her chest felt lighter. Better, she corrected. Now we do better. The engine roared to life beneath them as they sped away, leaving the wreckage behind. The aftermath. Rain lashed against the windows of Lisa's temporary apartment, a cramped but clean one-bedroom in a building with paper-thin walls and no elevator. The space smelled like fresh paint and takeout containers, a far cry from the sprawling estate she'd shared with Mark. Emily sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by moving boxes, holding up a framed photo. Remember this? Lisa glanced over. The picture showed the three of them at Disneyland, Emily at age 7, grinning between them with Mickey Mouse ears. Mark had been hungover that day, snapping at every long line and overpriced souvenir. I remember you throwing up on Space Mountain, Lisa said, tossing another stack of files into the shred box. Emily's smile faded as she set the photo aside. CNN is running a segment about Dad tonight. The fall of Whitmore Holdings. Lisa paused mid-reach. The media frenzy had been relentless. Financial blogs dissecting Mark's embezzlement, gossip sites salivating over the other woman, business magazines speculating about Lisa's unexpected control of the company's shares. The kettle whistled. Jason emerged from the tiny kitchen, balancing 3 mugs. He'd been a quiet presence since the arrest, helping them sort through the wreckage, both literal and figurative. Emily accepted her tea. What happens to the company now? Lisa stirred honey into her mug. We liquidate what's left, pay back the investors we can, and... A sharp knock cut her off. Jason was at the door in 2 strides, peering through the peephole. His posture shifted instantly. You've got to be kidding me. He yanked the door open. Claire stood in the hallway, drenched from the rain, her designer coat clinging to her visibly pregnant frame. No makeup, no pretenses. Just raw, trembling fear. Emily shot to her feet. I need help, Claire blurted, her eyes locked on Lisa. He took everything from me, too. A beat of stunned silence. Then Claire opened her purse and dumped its contents onto the floor.
Passports. Cash.
And a single, damning burner phone. Lisa picked it up. The screen showed a series of texts from Mark, sent that morning from his lawyer's office. Change your name. Get rid of it. or you'll regret it. Jason let out a low whistle. Claire wiped her nose with a shaking hand. He promised me we'd disappear together. Instead, he left me holding the bag for everything. Her voice broke. I'm 26 years old, and Interpol has a file on me. Emily made a noise of disgust. And you thought coming here was a good idea? Claire flinched but held her ground. I have information. Account numbers he thinks I don't know about. Properties in Belize. She looked at Lisa. Help me, and I'll help you bury him. Lisa studied the girl, the smudged eyeliner, the chipped manicure, the way her hands instinctively cradled her stomach. Not a villain, just another pawn in Mark's game. Jason picked up one of the passports. These are good fakes. Must have cost him a fortune. Claire nodded desperately. He has more. For himself. Lisa set down the phone. The pieces clicked together. Mark's emergency fishing trip to Canada last year, his sudden interest in cryptocurrency. He'd been preparing an exit strategy long before the wedding. Emily crossed her arms. Mom, you can't possibly believe her. Lisa met Claire's gaze. Why now? Claire's chin trembled. Because I finally realized the only person Mark Whitmore cares about is himself. She placed a protective hand over her belly. And I refuse to let my child learn that lesson the hard way. Rain drummed against the windows. The radiator hissed. Lisa reached for her laptop. Start talking. The double cross. The apartment fell into absolute silence as Claire spilled her information like an overflowing river. Bank names in the Cayman Islands. Passwords written in code in Mark's agendas. Even a hidden safe behind a painting in a beach house Lisa didn't even know he still owned. Jason scribbled everything down in a notepad, his fingers smudged with ink from the pen that never stopped moving. Emily watched Claire like a hawk eyeing its prey, distrusting every word. He has a private jet scheduled in 3 days, Claire said, her eyes red from exhaustion. Leaves from a private airfield in Long Island. Final destination, Dubai. Lisa felt a knot form in her stomach.
Dubai.
No extradition. Were you going with him? Emily asked, her voice sharp. Claire looked down at her hands. That was the plan. Until he left me alone at the hotel last week with only half the money he promised. She lifted her eyes, brimming with tears. That's when I found out he'd only bought 1 ticket. Jason let out a dry laugh. Classic Mark. Lisa closed her laptop with a decisive click. We need to alert the authorities. Now. Claire shook her head frantically.
No.
If he suspects I betrayed him. Her fingers tightened over her belly. That's when Lisa understood. Claire wasn't just afraid for herself. She was terrified for the child she was carrying. Jason stood, stretching his back. We need concrete proof. Something that nails him for good. Claire bit her lip, hesitant. I have something. She opened a hidden compartment in her bag and pulled out a small recorder. He gave this to me to record meetings with company partners. I used it against him. She pressed play. Mark's voice echoed, clear and calculated. Of course, I'm leaving Lisa with nothing. She thinks she controls the shares, but I have signed documents proving mental incompetence. 2 psychiatrists agree she's unstable. The daughter inherits, and as legal guardian, Emily let out a muffled whimper. Lisa felt the floor vanish beneath her. Mental incompetence. Legal guardianship. It was worse than she'd imagined. Claire turned off the recorder. He has a lawyer in Geneva preparing the papers. His flight is to sign everything before you can contest it. Jason was already grabbing his keys. We're gonna need the FBI. Now. Lisa looked at Claire, really looked at her for the first time. The girl was shattered, but there was a spark of determination in her eyes now. Why did you keep this? Lisa asked. Claire swallowed hard. Because I saw what he did to you. And I realized that would be me in a few years. The silence that followed was broken by the sound of Lisa's phone vibrating. A message from an unknown number. You think you've won? It's not over yet, sweetheart. Lisa showed the message to Jason, her fingers trembling slightly. He smiled, but there was no humor in it. Good. I love it when they save us the trouble of hunting them down. As Jason called his FBI contact, Lisa walked to the window. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets glistening under the city lights. Somewhere out there, Mark was preparing to run. But he'd made one crucial mistake. He'd underestimated every woman in his life. The final move. The private airfield stretched before them under the pale glow of pre-dawn lights. Lisa adjusted her earpiece, the FBI agent's voice crackling through it. Team in position. Wait for signal. Jason crouched beside her behind a fuel truck, his breath visible in the cold morning air. You sure you want to do this? Lisa checked her watch. 5:47 a.m. Mark's jet would begin boarding in 13 minutes. I need to look him in the eye one last time. Across the tarmac, Claire sat in an unmarked van with Emily, both wired with recording devices. The bargain was simple. Claire would approach Mark as planned, while the FBI captured every word. A black sedan rolled onto the runway. Lisa's pulse spiked. Mark emerged, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, carrying only a briefcase. No luggage. No last-minute sentimentality. Just business. Claire stepped forward on cue, her pregnancy visible under a thin coat. Mark. He spun, his face cycling through shock, anger, then cold calculation. You stupid girl. His hand shot to his pocket. FBI agents materialized from the shadows. FBI. Hands where we can see them. Mark froze, then laughed, a chilling sound that carried across the runway. You brought the feds? For what? A civil dispute. Lisa stepped into the light. For conspiracy to commit fraud. For embezzlement. For attempting to declare me mentally incompetent. She held up the Geneva documents Claire had smuggled out. You forgot one thing. Mark's smile faltered. I was never the weak one. Lisa nodded to the agents. Check his briefcase. The snap of latches. A gasp from an agent. Sir, it's all here. Offshore account details, forged psychiatric evaluations, even a fake passport. Jason whistled. Busted with the getaway loot. Classic. Mark's composure shattered. You ruined everything, he spat at Claire. Emily emerged from the van, tears streaming.
No, Dad.
You did. As agents led Mark away, he turned to Lisa with venom in his eyes. This isn't over. Lisa watched the sunrise paint the sky gold behind him. For you, she said softly. It is. 6 months later, the cafe buzzed with midday chatter. Lisa signed the final Whitmore Holdings liquidation papers, the company's debts now settled. Emily sat across from her, applying to law school. Claire's baby cooed in a carrier nearby, a boy named Lucas, with no Whitmore in his surname. Jason slid into the booth, dropping a newspaper. The headline read, Disgraced CEO sentenced to 15 years. Emily raised her coffee. To new beginnings. Glasses clinked. Around them, life moved forward. Lisa smiled. To the women who survived you, Mark. Yendi.